with Lisa, what apologies have we received today, please?
Councillor Rhonda Roberts, Councillor Mark Young and Gareth Owens. I believe we've got Matt Powell here representing the monitoring officers.
That's great. Is anybody aware of any other apologies that we haven't received? No, I can't see any hands being raised. So we'll go on to item number 2, which is declaration of interests. Does anybody have any declaration of interest to make? Can't see any hands being raised. So we'll go on to item 3, which is notice of urgent matters. I haven't received any notice of urgent matters, so that does not apply. So we'll go on to the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 16th of June of this year. So we'll deal with them in terms of accuracy to begin with. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, and page 8. I can't see any hands being raised, so I presume that everybody is happy that they're a true and accurate record. Thank you, Lisa. So can I have somebody propose that we accept them, please? Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Anthony. Will you all show that you agree, please? Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to item number 5, matters arising from the minutes of the last meeting. I'd like to raise one under item 7 of the last meeting, refers to the presentation we had from the Chief Fire and Rescue Advisor and Inspector for Wales in relation to his report on the effectiveness of response to domestic dwelling fires. And it was said, it was noted in the actions that there would be an action plan formulated to deal with the recommendations arising within his report. Is it possible to have an overview of where we are with the action plan, please?
Yeah, I can give that, Chair.
Thanks, Justin.
I'll say that we're making steady progress and meaningful progress against the recommendations, but there's definitely more that we can do. So operationally, we've made some progress around equipment. So we've done scoping work for changing some of the equipment that we carry on fire appliances, increase into the larger diameter hoses that the fire advisor references within his reports. And we've also fitted 5 of our fire appliances with flow meters, which will lead us into sort of different firefighting tactics in future. We've also made budget provision for future appliances to be retrofitted with that equipment as we move forward. So we've added that into our annual budget. And we expect by the end of this year, we'll have 10 appliances fitted with that kit. Since the last discussion, we've now established a working group which will respond directly to these recommendations, and will do a gap analysis and sort of basically come up with that detailed plan so that we can change not only our operational policy, our training, and also what further equipment we want in the future. So I'd say we are making progress against the recommendations, albeit it will take a bit of time. The advisor himself, references the challenges around resourcing, and clearly that is something that we have to work around to satisfy recommendations in the report.
Thank you for that update, Justin. Are there any other matters arising that members wish to raise from the minutes of the last meeting, please? No, I can't see any hands being raised, so that will you just show that you note and approve the contents of the last meeting then? Thank you very much. That's been passed. So we go on to item number 6, which is the Welsh Government consultation regarding the governance arrangements for fire and rescue authorities and services in Wales. And I think it's the Chief that's presenting this item. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'm presenting this item rather than the clerk because of probably my working relationship is a bit closer to Welsh Government than his. So the covering paper that you have here was actually written before the consultation was published because it has been delayed by a few weeks, but it is finally here. And the consultation requires us to submit a response by the 24th of October. And Therefore, the recommendations, which I will return to at the end of my presentation, is to note the contents of the consultation and for members to agree to attend a workshop to scrutinise the proposals and to draft our response to those proposals. And in order to make it easier for people to participate, the intention is that we shall have an in-person workshop at headquarters on Monday, the 29th of September. And for those people who can't make that, we will also have an additional one online on Thursday, the 2nd of October. So plenty of opportunities for members to put forward their views and their ideas that we can then issue to the Welsh Government. What I'd like to do today is to talk a bit about the background to this. The current North Wales Fire and Rescue Authority came into being nearly 30 years ago in 1996. And that was the combination of the old Gwynedd and Clwyd Fire and Rescue Services. And they legally came together under what was called the Combination Order. And in this Combination Order, it set out how it should be governed under a fire authority, and it set out the funding arrangements. And in many ways, it was quite simple. This was the fire and rescue service for 6 local authorities that were coming into existence. So all 6 would contribute to the cost of their fire and rescue services, and it would be in proportion to the population in each of those counties. And in the same way, the representation on the fire authority would be in the same proportion to the population in each county, which is why we have slightly more members from Flintshire than we do from Anglesey. So that arrangement came into being, and it's operated fairly well for that period of time. And then if we fast forward to 2018, there was a white paper looking at those governance arrangements and questioning whether they should change, questioning whether the funding arrangements should change, and also around performance management. Now, those of you who have been on the Fire Authority for some time, like the chair, will recall that we had a workshop in those days in which we put together members' views and submitted a response to that consultation. I'm not sure whether the driving force around that was actually a belief that there needed to be change, because we have always been a high-performing service within Wales. But I think it came on the back of the attempt to reform local government and the governance arrangements that didn't then carry forward. So in 2018, there was that white paper. And at the end of that, it was decided that we would continue with the current arrangements for fire authorities, but further work would be done around funding and around performance management. Now, of course, we all know what happened in 2020 with COVID, so a lot of that work just didn't take place. So let's move forward to 2024. The decision by Welsh Government to intervene in South Wales Fire and Rescue Service on the back of cultural issues and concerns around governance. They decided that intervention should take place. They disbanded the Fire Authority and replaced it on a temporary basis by 4 commissioners. Now, those commissioners have done their work, and the question has now got to be answered: what will they be replaced with? And that's where we come to this consultation now. So it is an opportunity to move away from what we've currently got, but because of the time constraints, as we are only too well aware, there will be an election in Wales in May. and therefore there can't be any changes to primary legislation. So any changes has to be within the remit of the current combination orders. And those combination orders will only allow for certain changes. So you will see in the paper that it talks about changes to the numbers of members on the fire authority, because that is within the gift of the current combination orders. It also talks about co-opted members and appointments, because that also is allowable. When it comes to funding arrangements, we cannot move away from the current system, but it does talk about whether there should be more formalised consultation, although we've always done consultation around our budget with the constituent authorities. And there was also discussions around what the new inspection regime, or a form of performance management, will be to the new fire and rescue service authorities. So it doesn't go as far as perhaps some people would like, but it is all doable within the timescales and under the current combination order. As I say, it's important that we have enough time for members to be able to unpack all the implications of these proposals, and that's why we're intending to have the workshops. I'm happy to take any initial comments that anyone might have, Chair, or indeed any questions on the back of this consultation. And I would urge everybody to take part in those workshops so that we can really work through what might the implications of these changes be. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. That's really helpful in terms of giving the background overview to this paper or this consultation. Any questions or comments, please? I can't see any hands being raised. As I put in the email that was sent out in relation to the fact that we would be holding workshops, it's obviously important as an authority that we respond to this consultation, because there are far-reaching implications to the proposals, or some of the proposals contained in the consultation, but it doesn't preclude you as individual members liaising with your local authorities and feeding back into any response that they would want to make as well in relation to this consultation. So if there's no hands being raised, I'll just refer you to the recommendations. Chief, do you want to come back in with those?
Yes, if I could, just really so that members are aware that when I presented the same paper to the audit committee this morning, there were questions around, does this mean that there might be one fire and rescue service for the whole of Wales? And the other question was, does it mean that we could be moving to a precepting? And I think it's clear that although both of those options are not off the table, they're not, there isn't the ability to do it under the current combination orders. And I believe also, Helen, you know that the Section 151 officers for the councils are preparing a response. They've been tasked with doing that on behalf of the councils, haven't they?
I believe so. My understanding is the Section 151 officers are all meeting to fully explore the potential around the consultation, and certainly the head of finance, the treasurer and myself will be meeting with them prior to the submission of a full response.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Helen. So the two recommendations before us are that, number one, we note the contents of the consultation. Number two, agree to attend a workshop to scrutinise the proposals and submit a response drafted on behalf of the authority, setting out members' views regarding the proposals. Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please, for those recommendations? Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Gareth Roberts. If you all show that you agree, please. Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to the next item of the agenda, item 6, which is item 7, the annual performance assessment for 2024-25. And it's ACFO Anthony Jones who's presenting that. Diolch, Ant.
Diolch, Penanda pawb. The purpose of this report is to present members of the executive panel with the annual performance assessment for 2024-2025. The authority is required under Section 15 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2009 to publish an assessment of its performance. And this assessment should be undertaken on an annual basis and published no later than the 31st of October each year. In addition, Schedule 1 of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act 2015 requires an annual report showing how the authority has progressed against its wellbeing objectives. The authority's Community Risk Management Plan for the period of 2024 to 2029 and the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan of 24-25 were approved by the authority on the 15th of July 24, and they focus on the 5 key principles of prevention, protection, response, people, and the environment. The Community Risk Management Implementation Plan sets out the authority's objectives for each financial year, including how it will fulfil its obligations under the Local Government Wales Measure for 2009 and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. The annual performance assessment for 2024-2025 is contained as Appendix 1 to this report, and it's providing an overview of the activity for the full year and confirming progress against the authority's stated objectives and the 5 principles within the CRMP. Whilst the regulations are not prescriptive on the form or the content of this performance assessment, for consistency in reporting and accountability, we detail our approach in Section 8 of this cover paper. The authority is also a signatory on the All Wales Dwelling Fire Response Charter, which provide a framework for improving fire safety in the home to reduce the numbers and the impact of domestic dwelling fires. Where fires do occur, the Charter promotes an effective and professional response. And again, our annual performance assessment describes our compliance to this Charter. So therefore, it's asked that members note and endorse the content of the annual performance assessment for the period of 2024-25 for full approval by the authority.
Dear Hans, it's a very comprehensive document with a lot of information contained within. Can I ask members any questions or comments, please? Thank you, Anthony.
No.
Sorry, yeah, you can hear me now. Yes, I'm off mute. Right. Yeah, thank you for the document. Yeah, very comprehensive. Can I draw your attention to the table on page 39 regarding wildfire incidences that have occurred since 2022 to 25? I notice quite a worrying trend, actually. And this is in conjunction with the quarterly report we're going to get at agenda item 8. If you look back at 21-22, the final quarter, there were 21 wildfires, followed by 22-23, first quarter and second quarter, 16 and 18 wildfires. Last year, we had 40 in total, which 35 were in the final quarter. This year, we're going to be reported on that 25 wildfires are in the first quarter, when it was only 1 first quarter last year. And if you go into the second quarter, 22-23, they're reporting 18, which is the current quarter we're in at the moment that we won't get the report to till the next meeting. Might I suggest we may be over 18, probably heading towards 20 or 30 already. So the trend I'm seeing is there's the potential for this year to be somewhat 60 to 80 wildfire incidents over the full financial year, and the concern of the resource that is going to be required to deal with that, considering budgeting for next year. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Venn. Yeah, and you are right. We are noting and seeing the same trends that you are, and obviously with wildfires and environmental fires or incidents in general, we've seen that increase in floodings as well as wildfires, depending on the climate. And this year in particular, you are right, it's been a very dry year, and you'll have seen that national reporting as well as our own reporting that we have seen an increase in incidents across the country and in fact in many partners across the world. From an investment point of view, we do. We have invested significantly. The authority have invested significantly in wildfires. For example, rolling out our dedicated protective equipment and firefighting PPE for our firefighters. We have dedicated wildfire leads and wildfire officers on all of our rota groups, and we have dedicated wildfire vehicles. So it is something that we are very, very acutely aware of, the challenges that we face and the incidents that we are having, and we do monitor those quite closely. We have also, you'll know, or we know from our own reporting that whilst we have been stretched and we have had incidents that have run back to back, we haven't had concurrent incidents, and of course that could cause us further concern because our resources are finite. But we do monitor how we respond and learn very much from them. We spend a lot of time working with our local resilience forum partners as well, and any significant incidents that do come about that result in that multi-agency response, we do debrief. So thank you for raising the question. It's something we are acutely aware of, and we are monitoring those trends ourselves.
Chief, I think you want to come in as well. Thank you.
Yes, this is something that we've always dealt with, and we've tried to reduce the numbers through an all Wales approach to tackling grass fires. But as Councillor Wren has pointed out, despite what we have managed to do collaboratively, these are becoming bigger and bigger problems, and the resource that it draws into them. And what we notice on a daily basis when we get the logs is the number of increased small fires, small grass fires, that if we are not there and we're not putting them out, then they can escalate into wildfires that can take resources over 3 or 4 days in order to tackle them. I guess what this does is emphasize just how important it is to have a rural fire and rescue service that is available. And for the last 4 years, we have been working to make sure that we have more resources in our more rural areas so that we can tackle these at source rather than waiting for them to be grow to be a larger major incident. But this year we have been particularly stretched with the amount of wildfires that we've had to deal with. And although we've had a lot of letters of appreciation from the public, this is something that's not going to go away, and we need to set up our resources and make sure we've got the adequate rural fire cover. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anthony, do you have an additional question? Are you satisfied with the...
No, thank you. That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. On the subject of wildfires, Anthony, you mentioned about sort of national reporting, and there was an article on BBC Wales News a couple of weeks ago whereby they highlighted the increases in wildfires within Wales, and I think they interviewed somebody from Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Service. But one of the things that they said in that report, which surprised me, was that they said that the statistical data was recorded in a different way for wildfires in South Wales Fire and Rescue Service. Are you aware of that? And if so, why do they record it differently?
I'm not currently aware of that, Chair. I can certainly find out the details of that for you, but I don't have that data to hand.
Okay, perhaps we could look into that. Oh, Justin, I see you got your hand up. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Whilst I don't have an answer for you today, I also saw the same article and have picked it up with Paul Kay. So I've asked him to understand and get some more information for me on what the differences are between the way that we are reporting and feeding back on our data. So I will come back to you with updates on that in the future.
Thank you, because obviously when we talk about sort of all Wales sector indicators, then obviously we should be measuring performance and reporting performance in the same standard format. So yes, if you're able to look into that, that'd be great. Thank you. Any more questions or comments, please? Cynghorwyr John Evan Jones, diolch.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to sort of elaborate and add to what's already been said. But I mean, the cheapest option with wildfires, I suppose, is prevention. And what's being done to work with bodies such as Natural Resources Wales to increase the awareness of wildfires, and is that something that's been given attention enough as well? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Yeah, most definitely. We work as part of across North Wales as part of our again, I mentioned earlier, working with the Local Resilience Forum, which Natural Resources Wales are an active partner of on that, and also we work as on an all Wales basis from a prevention point of view in relation to working with landowners, working with Natural Resources Wales to where we can educate and support people in the causes of wildfires. It's harder and harder for landowners to do that preventative work in relation to how they manage their crops, but we certainly, on an all Wales basis and within communications we put out, support and try our best to educate landowners, and working with Natural Resources Wales to that sort of that preventative work, that really acute land management that can help and reduce those wildfires. And as the chief mentioned, you know, the fact that, you know, barbecue safety and stopping those incidents in their infancy, and those smaller, stopping those incidents when they're small, developing to larger incidents is really important as well from that educational point of view.
Yeah, Grant, and I think the chief wants to come in. Thank you, Chief.
I'm just echoing what Ant has said about we working with others to prevent these fires. I think it's unfortunate that Welsh Government decided to take away the grant which funded our arson reduction team, because that team was part of the group of people that go out and talk to landowners face to face with farmers to encourage them to notify us of burning and work with us to make sure that the risks are reduced. Unfortunately, we don't have that team anymore because the grant was withdrawn 2 years ago.
Well, thank you, Chief, for pointing that out. And obviously, because this is a nationwide problem, it's something that perhaps we could pick up on in the social partnership meeting with the Cabinet Secretary, see if we can squeeze any more money out of the grant funding program. So that's something that perhaps we can pursue. If I could just raise another item from the report, page 17 gives us the health and safety data, which has to be contained within the report or reported on. And I noticed that it says that there's an 18% increase in accidents over the last 12 months, but it doesn't give any sort of background to why that is, doesn't identify any trends. I don't know, Ant, if you're able to sort of give us a little bit more information, or Justin, as to why there's been that 18% increase. Yeah.
Certainly, Chair. Yes. So actually, that increase is due to vehicle damage within our red fleet, and it's when travelling forward. So we've spent an awful lot of time and education with our staff in relation to reversing incidents specifically in our red fleet, so our fire engines, our fire appliances, and we've seen quite a significant reduction there. But this is just to reassure members, it is when our staff are driving on blue lights but at slow speed, so knocking wing mirrors, wheel arches and the like on trees and rocks, and those low speed manoeuvring, such as parking and turning. So we have seen an increase, and now we are identified that we have our driver training school have prepared a presentation using that data to support the education of our drivers, and those low speed manoeuvring incidents, or those incidents when responding on blue lights where the vehicles are coming in contact with the likes of rocks and branches and trees.
Thank you for that, Ant. Any other questions or comments from members in relation to the report, please? No. Before we move to the recommendation, I'd just like to sort of point out one thing in terms of, I think, which is very sort of positive in relation to the report. Under the all Wales sector indicators, it refers to the number of dwelling fires attended where a smoke alarm was not fitted. And within North Wales, there was only 12.43% of cases where this smoke detector wasn't fitted. In Mid and West Wales, it was 47%, and in South Wales, it was 34%. So it just shows you the good work that's been done in terms of safe and well checks and getting smoke detectors fitted. And so I think that's a really positive, good news story that's worth highlighting. So the recommendation before you is that we note and endorse the contents of the annual report. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Anthony. A seconder? Thank you, Carol. If you all show that you approve the recommendation. Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 8, which is the performance monitoring report for Q1 of this year. And I think it's Mike Plant that's introducing this. Diolch yn fawr, Mike.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you for the privileged opportunity to deliver this report for the quarter of the 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of June 2025. So members will note that the purpose of the report is to provide the executive panel with an update on the performance of the period just mentioned, and how that update reflects the 5 key principles in the community risk management implementation plan that ACFO Jones has already mentioned as being people prevention, protection, response, and the environment, and to see how they, if there are, and to provide comments on any emerging trends and future actions. So compared to the same period in 24-25, we'll start off in paragraph 2, that the fire incidents have increased to 712, with them being 417 previously. And while this does present an overall increase of 70.7%, it's broken down further on page 9 of the report in that primary fires has grown by 24%, but the main reason for growth is the secondary fires we've already mentioned, have grown 130%. Members will note that we've already discussed that an increase in secondary fire reflects the dry weather conditions that we've had. And when we've looked at this, you will note that what has been also identified is that there's less flooding incidents for the same period, which makes sense due to the change in weather conditions. The wildfires, they are unpredictable. We have had one case of a wildfire that was concurrent, and they are resource intensive, as members know. We did have a couple of incidents that drew a lot of public attention recently in Combe Mountain in Llandudno that went on for a number of days, and also Mynydd Bodafon in Llanachamedd in Anglesey. And ACFO Jones has already covered a lot of the things that I had here to mention, so I'm not going to repeat them, but just again to say that members will have seen in the numerous media outlets pictures of the Fire Authority's investment in action, namely, the new wildfire lightweight PPE, the wildfire appliances and welfare units that supported those incidents really well. And speaking to the crews as well, it's made a huge difference, and to the FDS officers attending, in that it's really helped, especially our on-call officers, to keep going and avoid sort of heat exhaustion. They're able to, maybe whereas we would have to do reliefs earlier previously with the heavier fire kit, they're able to keep going a little bit longer, etc., which is making better use of time. So I thought it was important to mention that. Looking at paragraph 3, we have noted that accidental dwelling fires have marginally increased by 5.8%. If members look at page 11 of the report, they'll see that compared with the same period last year, with a total of 73 incidents attended. However, whilst this is an increase over the previous financial year, or the same period, it's important to note that it's still 8.8% less than the 3-year average of 80, and is also significantly less than the number of accidental dwelling fires attended during previous financial years previous to 2024-25, and that's due to all the hard work and that the prevention protection teams have done. Looking at the fourth point, members will note that attendance at special service calls have decreased by 8%, which is good news year on year, to 306, which included 67 road traffic collisions. And again, this is great credit to the various campaigns that have been going on with Biker Down, Operation Again, for example, that are making inroads into, and that's been reflected by the KPIs that the Welsh Government have produced to that effect. The fifth point, work continues to support our communities, a total of 4,722 safe and well checks completed during the period. Although there has been a slight decrease in overall terms of 5.7% for the same period the year previous, the reason for that is that the focus remains on the medium and high priority visits, and that's reflected that there has actually been a 7.2 increase in the number of high priority safe and well checks completed, and a 13.1% increase in the number of medium priority safe and well checks completed. The reduction overall, therefore, is due to crews using Exeter data to better target and perhaps travel greater distances to find those people that are more in need. And what that's done is it's lowered the numbers because we're not doing as many low priority checks, so to speak. Members will also note that there continues to be excellent work done throughout the North Wales Fire and Rescue Service area in respect of education through school visits, the provision of the Phoenix course, and individual interventions to address fire sets. And that on page 10 and 16 of the report includes lots of work done with key stakeholders to reduce risk, youth engagement with 1,520 children over that period who've been given fire safety education during the last financial year. Our members will note that we've had 4 Phoenix courses as well during that quarter, with 29 youths being able to successfully complete the course, which was all excellent. Members also note that following a request for this information during the last quarterly performance report, on page 26 there is now more detail on starters and leavers, and following a concerted campaign since restructuring 2022, we are now recruiting more on-call firefighters than we're losing in the on-call stations, which has taken a huge amount of work to do, which is encouraging. And that brings an end to the report, unless someone would like to ask questions.
Mike, before I throw it open to members for comments and questions, if I can just pick up on the very serious wildfire at Mynydd Bodafon, which obviously I know that area very well.
Yeah.
And it is, really appreciative of sort of the hard work and the commitment and the professionalism shown by all the crews who attended, who succeeded in preserving life and property. But it was so sad to see the devastation that's happened to the mountain, the whole of the mountain, and obviously the wildlife that will have been destroyed as there was a report in the media to say that there had been a couple of arrests. I haven't heard anything since. Are you able to comment at all about the actual investigation as to the cause of the fire? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I can't comment on the fire investigation because I'm not privy to that. I can get that information for you and report back. What I do know about that incident that the Chair is dead right. The fire started on the 22nd of August, and it was ongoing till the 27th of August when the stop message was received. So 5 days, 13 hours from start to finish, which took a great deal of effort and cover from the local on-call crews and the control teams and the FDS officers to keep that provided. I have attended wildfires in that area a few years ago, previously during COVID, and it is quite challenging with lots of narrow lanes and lots of property that's very often not inhabited because it's a holiday home. So being able to protect that and ensure that we're not unaware of a potential property that could have been affected because there's no one there to see it and to call it in, so to speak. So the crew overall, the fact that no property was lost was excellent, because it's quite challenging terrain, as the chair will clarify.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Mike. It would be sort of helpful to know at the end of the day if we're able to get information as to whether or not it was an accidental or deliberate fire. But obviously, I appreciate that you're not able to say more information at this stage. Any questions or comments in relation to the report from members, please? Cynghorydd John Ifan, diolch.
Diolch, Don. I was just going to mention engaging with 1,520 children. If we're talking about North Wales, where last count is something like 130,000 children up to 17 years old in North Wales. This is, and maybe wildfires and things like that are something that we relate more with barbecues and camping and the younger generation, perhaps, although we can't generalize like that. But is sort of 1% or 1.1% of children being reached? What can be done to improve that?
Certainly, Councillor Jones. What I would say about that is that that target, what I neglected to reflect, is that was achieved despite one of our fire safety educationalists being on maternity leave. One of the individuals that does go into the schools and engage with youth, etc. So it's still a large amount, but it potentially could have been larger if that wasn't the case. There have been other campaigns that I'm aware of where local prevention protection officers have worked with partner agencies in Anglesey, for example, in the Newborough Forest area, to go and in fairness, it has led to some enforcement and to actually beaches being closed off because people were utilising barbecues when our staff were going and telling them, advising them not to, as part of rough camping, etc. So there has been a lot of other work that's been done targeted locally, target hardening, etc. But totally agree that to continue to educate the youth can only help in driving these numbers down further.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Mike, you referred to the data in relation to the safe and well checks, and it's pleasing to note that there's been an increase in completing the high priority safe and well checks within the target period. And members will remember that we did specifically ask for data in relation to how many times we were actually reaching the target, which wasn't contained previously. Now, if I read the charts correctly, it's saying that 68% of high priority cases have been actually completed within the target time. I don't know if that's a good figure or a bad figure. Do we actually have a sort of a target as to what percentage we actually want to achieve within the sort of the set time?
I'm not sure if anyone else wants to come in there. I'll try to speak on behalf of Paul Kay. When I've spoken to him previously about that, obviously you'd like to try and get that figure higher. Some of the individuals that are on that list are quite challenging in that they may be referred by family, friends, agencies, whatever. Some of them may have mental health issues or mobility issues, etc. And sometimes it's a case that our staff doing their best to contact them, and they either don't come to the door or won't answer the phone, etc. So then they have to be a bit more innovative in trying to find ways to access them. So they're the right people definitely to try to interact with, but sometimes it's challenging.
Justin, do you want to come in? Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just going to echo what Mark's saying there is that we'd really like to get that down to zero, so nobody is on our list. I guess there's some driver from the partners that we work with in terms of the quality of the referrals that we receive. So a lot of our referrals that come through from partners are considered high risk, and they go into our high risk register. and we then have to obviously use our resources to get out there as quickly as we can. I've been picked this up with Paul Kay recently, and we are looking at how we can utilise the crews at fire stations more effectively to deal with some of the lower medium risk numbers that we've got on our list there, so that we can actually dedicate our prevention staff or dedicate prevention staff to getting out purely to the high risk referrals. So we'll just keep plugging away at that. So I guess it is something that we probably need to consider as to what is the effective benchmark. We've set a standard for the timescales, and ideally we would like to get that as low as possible.
Thank you for that, Justin. Certainly, I think members would like to see that figure get going up and up in terms of hitting that target. So we'll monitor that for Q2, and hopefully the results will be even better. Any other comments or questions from members, please? I can't see any hands being raised. So the recommendation was that we note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Geneva, and thank you, Chris. Will you show that you approve the contents report? Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to item number 9, which is the biodiversity report and plan for endorsement and approval and recommendation. And it's ACFO Helen MacArthur who's presenting this. Diolch, Helen.
Diolch. I guess this report actually builds on some of the discussions we just had around the wildfires. And what we're seeking is endorsement of the Biodiversity and Ecosystem Resilience Report, which is a 3-year report looking backwards, and also our Biodiversity Action Plan, which is a 3-year action plan for the future. We are required to publish both of these as part of the Environment Wales Act. That Act places a duty on us to maintain and enhance biodiversity in our activities, and also the Wellbeing of Future Generation Act mandates us to consider a resilient Wales. And if we also look to the future, there's a forthcoming environmental bill whose objective will be to halt and reverse biodiversity decline. So really quite a complex environment. So in terms of the achievements that we've made over the last 3 years, we've changed our firefighting phones to less environmentally problematic ones. We've also looked to initiate a trial in palm oil-free HVO, and subject to that being successful, that will be rolled out across our organisation. We've also looked at enhancing the habitat, where we've created pollinator-friendly habitats at 8 of our fire stations, and also installed swift nest boxes at 2 of our stations on training towers. In addition to that, we've undertaken a tree inventory and conducted an ash dieback risk assessment for all 47 of our sites, and we've also embedded biodiversity co-benefits into our core decarbonisation plans. That covers everything from heat, power, fleet, waste management. In terms of what we're hoping to do in the future, we're looking at greening our stations, and that programme will convert at least 15% of our mown grassland to wildfire meadows, and we'll also look to native tree planting towards March 2028. Where we do identify the need to replace trees with ash dieback, we'll replace 2 trees for every 1 tree removed, and they'll be native trees. Additionally, biodiversity net gain will be embedded into our capital programme, so where we do any activities on our capital scheme, we'll look to improve the biodiversity. Importantly, it's about embedding biodiversity within our day-to-day business and our thinking, and all of our staff will look to complete an e-learning module to raise awareness. And across the organisation, we'll be looking at establishing a biodiversity champions network. So a lot of our actions might be perceived as relatively small, but they are the net gains across the service. So with that in mind, we're seeking approval of the biodiversity report and our plan, and endorsement for consideration by the full Fire Authority. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And any comments or questions from members in relation to the report, please? Councillor Chris Hughes. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. I very much welcome this report. I'm the biodiversity champion for Week, and I'm also chair of Colwyn Bay Conservation and Environment Federation. So it's something that's close to my heart, and I really enjoyed reading the report. I think it's really positive, and we're certainly moving in the right direction. But a lot of people say, why do we need to bother with biodiversity? Well, it's something most of us have always done, actually, and people don't realize it. We maintain our gardens, we look after some of our parks, planting trees and things like that, and it's great to have a beautiful looking community. But it's also about ensuring that our pollinators are protected, all our food, most of our medicines and the chemicals that we use on a day-to-day basis come from plants and other animals, and without that, we don't have that food, we don't have that lifestyle, we don't have those important building blocks of life. And so, it's something that's really, really important to me. My family, both my mother and father's families were farmers, and I know the benefits of to the farming industry of having a biodiverse area where pollinators can be attracted, and the impact that that can have on yields in farming. So I'm very much supportive of this, Chair, and I'd just like to thank everyone that's involved in producing the report.
Thank you for those comments, Chris. Much appreciated. Anthony?
Yeah, sorry, just let me lower my hand. Just regarding paragraph 8, where it says the habitat creation, a greening our stations program to convert minimum of 15%, and then native tree planting by March 2028. Is that not ambitious enough? Can't we bring that back earlier?
We can certainly endeavour. I think that was the backstop date, as it were. So we will certainly endeavour to bring that forward. I think the difficulty we have is we have one environmental manager, and there's an awful lot of projects going on in terms of things like reducing gas in a number of stations, solar panels. So it is about balancing off this with everything else that we do. But where possible, we'll definitely progress this.
In relation to progression then, Helen, can I ask, Table 2 has the Biodiversity and Economic Resilience Action Plan for the next 3 years. So will that plan be coming before us every quarter for us to review its progress?
We can certainly endeavour to ensure that it's on the timetable for either the executive panel or the fire authority. So perhaps outside of the meeting, if I can agree a timetable with you, that's something that we can facilitate.
I think if we are stressing the importance of this plan, then we need to be able to review it regularly. And the other thing I was going to ask, if possible, is that in relation to sort of the outcome actions, would it be possible for them to have RAG status applied to them? So then that will make it easier for us to monitor the progress.
I've just made a note of that, so I'm sure that we can facilitate that.
Okay, thank you, Diolch. Any other questions or comments in relation to the plan? I can't see any hands being raised. So the recommendations before you are: number 1, endorse the draft biodiversity report and plan for approval by the North Wales Fire and Rescue Authority. And number 2, approve the publication of the report and plan on the service's website until it has been considered for ratification by the authority first. So can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Gareth Roberts. If you all show that you agree, diolch yn fawr. So the only other item was urgent matters, but there aren't any urgent matters. So that brings today's meeting to an end. Can I thank everybody for their attendance and contribution? Diolch yn fawr pawb. Hwyl fawr. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.